Hey, how are you? Well, didn't think I would be making Wynncraft build videos anytime soon, but this build is both my favorite in the game and crazy underrated, so I had to talk about it. You see, mage is composed of three archetypes: Riftwalker, lightbender and arcanist. Lightbender has the healing and the support capabilities, while arcanist possesses the higher DPS output and a good AoE range. However, Riftwalker, even though it is used for boosting damage of both of those archetypes, wasn't really considered viable because of its low DPS output. But what if we could create a build that got the best of both Lightbender and Arcanist? Healing and support capabilities, but with a reasonably high damage output, good AoE, and as a bonus even gain insanely good walk speed, and very decent effective health. Well, let me present to you the ultimate warped Riftwalker build. As it is designed, Riftwalker is an archetype that uses Winded to boost the damage of its spells. As an example, by taking Windsweeper, borrowing Stain 2 and having the Riftwalker aspect at tier 2, we are getting 35 Winded, which boosts our Meteor damage to 1450% over DPS instead of the base 400%. With the combination of Crushing Comet, Thunderstorm and its aspect at tier 3, and Breathless with 35 Winded, we are getting up to 2025% DPS in one Meteor spell. However, to reach those levels of damage, we will need to get mobs to 35 Winded. And that is the reason this build uses Gust. Each Ice Snake hit will add Winded to enemies, recently buffed from 1 to 3, which made it even more broken. Gust allows us to have a consistent way of keeping mobs max Winded. Furthermore, to optimize our damage, the optimal spell cycle will be to swap between Ice Snakes and Meteors, and Ice Snake heals when we need to regenerate. But since the entire point of Riftwalker is to always spam spells, mana sustain would be an issue, right? Well, it's not. Thanks to this arcanist ability, named Manastorm, casting a spell with more than 100 mana will give back 5, thus increasing our sustain, but it's not all. Because of a very funny interaction with the Sorcery Mage ID that makes spell recasted activate Manastorm, sustaining our mana becomes way easier, even though we'll still need to greatly reduce the cost of our spells. And exactly for that reason, we are using both keracotonus and ringlets, which in total give -9 for spell cost reduction, alongside with some very cool IDs and skill points. Thanks to those items, putting a lot of skill points into intelligence and also taking a lot of cost reduction nodes, we are bringing our Ice Snake cost down to slightly more than 1 mana, meaning casting his spells actually regenerates more mana than it consumes. Of course, lowering the cost of Meteor wouldn't hurt either, and that is why we are using double Meteor customs, as well as lachesism, bringing our first spell cost down by 18%. And as a bonus, we even get the Enthropy Mage ID, which is super useful when trying to hit moving targets, since it makes our Meteor land faster on enemies. Remember Sorcery? Yeah, we are going to use it of course. Aside from increasing our mana sustain, it also gives some crazy buff to our abilities. Meteor Recast will increase our damage, while Ice Snake ones will allow us to apply additional Winded to enemies, and of course the Heal Spell Recast will increase our capacity to regenerate health quickly. Time Rift is a very good candidate for Sorcery, since outside of its negative mana regen, it gives a lot of spell damage and only requires intelligence, of which we already need in order to reduce the cost of our spells. But of course, after all that, we'd still need a weapon, right? Introducing the Warp. But what exactly is Warp? Warp is what you can call the most chaotic wand of Wynncraft. Aside from its base DPS that completely annihilates the competition, Warp is also known for having random IDs all over the place. Example, want to work fast? Yeah, sure, it will only cost you your entire health bar. Need to go somewhere using teleport? Crazy reductions, but... yeah, we might need to counter that. Well, negative health regen is easily counterable with some heal spells, but mana regen might be trickier. That sounds bad actually. Yeah, by using double suppression and diamond hydro necklace, we are gaining back 44 mana regen, as well as getting some free skill points. And because of the greatness that are Armon Towers, which gives about 85 more skill points, this build can squish in both Warp and Time Rift. What is that you said? Oh, it's fine, we need defense anyways. What is more important to remember is that this build gives a total of more than 250% walk speed, even more if we take Devitalize into account, which allows us to kite like an annoying mosquito around any bosses, and realistically never get hit by any attacks. However, even if we get hit by attacks, we still have Devitalize, which is an ability that reduces the amount of damage taken from enemies depending on the amount of Winded applied to them. And that applies to anyone hit by that one enemy, making Riftwalker also somewhat of a support for raids and annihilation. Outside of that, we also have the Timelock ability, which I will not be talking about in this video, since I've been planning on making an entirely separate video on the subject. And finally, for some bonus items and tips, I wanted to mention that this build also allows to use some very funny items such as the Lunar Spine and the Aldora's Vision, both very practical ways to rebuild mana quickly, as well as Rune of Stamina and Acceleration, which are great for additional speed in bosses, and of course, healing efficiency tomes and health regen tomes in order to counter some of Warp's downsides. Anyway, there will be more information in my Discord server that you should join. I will also put more builds for future videos in advance, so you can just come and ask me questions if you want to. But that's mostly what I had to say, so now sit back, relax and enjoy the second edit of this video.